Okay, this is lesson 2A, evaluating and simplifying expressions. So in this lesson, we're going to go through some basics of algebra, beginning algebra, where you understand the difference between an expression and an equation, and we use the correct order of operations to simplify or evaluate expressions, and then we simplify algebraic expressions. So let us begin. Parts of an algebraic expression. So an algebraic expression is actually one or more terms, each term having a number or a coefficient, a variable, exponents, like this. So in this case, we have three terms here. 1, 2, 3, so that's three terms. Each term has its own parts, so let's start with that first term. So in that first term, all of this is counted in that term, the 3 being the coefficient. The x is the variable, and then the variable has an exponent. And then the exponent of 2 on this one. So in the second term, this is where it gets a little interesting because you have to count the sign. So the minus sign here, if you learned way back in 7th to 8th grade about adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers, this minus 14x is the same as plus negative 14x. Normally we don't write that, because we just have to understand that a minus is like adding a negative, but you can write that, and that's perfectly okay if you do. So this whole term includes that negative sign. Now, when you include that negative sign, there is a plus here, like plus negative. If it helps you to change that minus sign to plus negative 14x, that's okay. But the coefficient on this one is negative 14. Negative 14, so that negative sign counts. And then you have the variable x. There is no visible exponent, but the exponent would be 1 if there was an exponent. Okay? And then this last term, plus 8, it's a positive 8 because it's plus 8. But there's no variable on that one, so that's a constant term. Okay, so since that one has three terms, if we were talking about polynomials, which you've learned about in high school, then that would be a trinomial. But in this case, we're just trying to understand the parts of the expression in those terms. So we have the coefficients, the variables, their exponents, and number, and the last term there, the plus 8, is a constant term. We normally write them in the order of the highest exponent on the variable first. So this one has three terms. We have the 3x squared first, then the minus 14x to the 1 next, and then the plus 8, the constant term, usually goes last. Okay, so speaking of exponents, to understand exponents and how to use them, you kind of have to understand like negative signs and parentheses that precede the exponents so that you know exactly what's happening there. Now, in this 3x to the fourth power just tells you how many 3's are multiplied together. So the 4 is actually not part of the problem. Exponential notation is just a quicker way of writing things that are multiplied together over and over and over again. So this 3 to the fourth is just 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. Speaking of multiplication, we use little dots there for multiplication. Sometimes we use parentheses for multiplication because the little dots can sometimes get lost in our expression. So that's 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. Now the next one, negative 5 to the second power, you'll notice that the negative sign and the 5 are grouped together inside the parentheses, and the exponent is on the outside of those parentheses. which means everything preceding the exponent gets written down twice. So if I was using parentheses for multiplication, it would be -5 times -5. Now, if you do the math on this one, it comes out to be positive 25, because a negative times a negative is positive. We should have done the math on the other one. That would be 81, I believe, positive. Now, if we wrote the dot multiplication on the second one, that would be a -5 with a dot and another -5. So you don't really need to have the parentheses, but like I said, that little dot can get lost in there sometimes, and if you lose that dot, then it looks like a subtraction problem. So we don't want to lose that. So using parentheses probably be the best idea. Now let's go down to this 2x to the third. There are no parentheses here. The exponent only precedes the x, not the 2. So only the x is to the third power. The 2 is not to the third power. So there's only a single 2, and x to the third is x times x times x. That becomes important when we're evaluating an expression like this. So, for example, if x was 10, this would be 2 times 10 times 10 times 10, so that would be 2,000. Because of the order of operations, we do the exponents first, so that would be like 10 to the third, then times 2. Now, if you forgot the order of operations, we're going to cover that here in a minute, then it would not come out to be the same thing. Now, going to the right here, now we have a problem like we did above with the -5, but this one is not in parentheses, squared. So if you were reading this, you wouldn't read it the same way as you would the one above. The one above is -5 in parentheses squared, or just -5 squared. But the one below is not -5 squared. It's the negative of 5 squared. Only the 5 is squared because the negative sign is not grouped with the 5. So that negative sign in this problem is kind of like the 2 in the previous problem, in that it's not part of what's taken to the power. Only the 5 is taken to the power. So that's a negative of 5 times 5. This one is -25. So those parentheses matter. Take a note of these two problems. They look very similar to each other. And in your calculator, if you're using a calculator, then the parentheses matter. If you have an older calculator which may not be programmed correctly, it might tell you that the answer to the second one is positive 25, but it's not. That's the negative of 5 squared. So that's the negative of 5 times 5. That's -25. Now on the bottom row here, we have a 2x in parentheses all to the third power. If we were to expand that, we have to write down everything in the parentheses 3 times multiplied by itself. So that would be 2x times another 2x times another 2x. That is different from the problem above, where the 2 and the x were not in parentheses. If we were going to simplify this, then there would be 3 2's multiplied together, not just 1. It would be 8x to the third, which is different from 2x to the third. So keep in mind, the parentheses matter. It does make a difference. And then this last one, the x plus 3 is all in parentheses, all of that, and it is squared. And squaring something means we're multiplying it by itself. So this one is now x plus 3 times x plus 3. And just in case you're wondering about this, because you learned about this in high school algebra, this is not, I'm going to write a not equal to x squared plus 9. Because you learned about multiplying a binomial times a binomial. And that would be, just for those of you who are practicing in your head there, x squared plus 3x plus another 3x plus 9, which is x squared plus 6x plus 9. Okay, so understand in expanded form, the exponent only works on whatever precedes it, and you have to pay attention to parentheses, like in this circled 2 problems that we have over here. The parentheses do matter. The -5 in parentheses precedes the 2 for the exponent, or the 5 precedes the 2 with the negative sign in front. Totally different. Okay, let's see if we can use the correct order of operations to evaluate some expressions. Okay, so when you learn the order of operations, you probably learned it like this: PEMDAS, or maybe even please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. The problem with this is that it looks like multiplication gets done before division, but that's not true. It looks like addition gets done before subtraction, but that's not true. So multiplying and dividing have this relationship where you can turn a division problem into multiplication. Or if you want to, you can turn a multiplication problem into division. So they are really the same priority. Same with addition and subtraction. You can turn subtraction into addition, just like we did with that minus 14x as plus negative 14x. So you don't really do addition before subtraction. Addition and subtraction have the same priority. So for those, multiplication and division, you do them in the order from left to right. Same for addition and subtraction. Left to right. If they appear consecutively in order, then you do whichever one comes first as you go from left to right. So what you should probably do now is pause the video, try these 3 problems, and then when you finish getting like what you think your answer is, like unpause it and check your answer. Okay, so to help you out, I'm going to go ahead and do this. You're probably unpaused right now. The first thing I would do is this 3 squared, because that's the exponent, right? No parentheses in this problem. So that would be 9. Then we have this division here, and we have this multiplication here. This addition and subtraction. By the way, you cannot change the order of subtraction. Don't do that. Subtraction has to be done in the order that it's written. So now we would divide first and then multiply, because we multiply and divide from left to right in the order that they appear if they're consecutive. So that's 27 divided by 9 is 3. So now we have this 4 minus 11 plus, the answer to that was 3, but we still have this times 2. So now we have to 3 times 2. So now we have 4 minus 11 plus 6. And here we have subtraction and addition only, so we're going to go left to right. 4 minus 11 is negative 7. And negative 7 plus 6 would be negative 1. So check to see how you did that. See if you got negative 1. If you didn't, then 2 things you want to check. Check the order of operations that you did and how you performed those. Also check my work, because I'm just doing this by hand without a calculator, and I've been known to make a mistake or 2 now and then. So in the next one, we have a variable, but we have x equals negative 4. So we're going to replace the x. Oh, I said negative 4, but 4. We're going to replace the x with 4 first, but we have 2x here, and this 2x means 2 times x. So that's going to be 2 times 4. Now all of that is in parentheses with this minus 5. Okay. So when we replace the x with 4, then the problem becomes that. It's always a good idea to write out the problem with the number in place of the variable before you begin. Okay, now inside the parentheses we have all of this. So all of that has to be done in the right order. So 2 times 4 is 8, because we have to multiply before subtracting, and 8 minus 5 is 3. So our answer to inside the parentheses is 3. The rest of the problem is this. And we have 3 squared that has to be done before multiplying. So that's going to be 5 minus 3 times the answer to 3 squared. Then we have to multiply before subtracting. So that's going to be 5 minus 27. 5 minus 27 should be negative 22. Okay, check your answer on those. See how you did. You should be able to do these without a calculator. You're not going to be required to take a quiz or a test without a calculator, but if you are using a calculator, practice using your calculator. Don't assume that just because you have a calculator, you're going to be able to do all the calculations correctly. Practice. Okay, and then that last one, if x is negative 5, this would be 3 times negative 5. Notice I put the negative 5 in parentheses squared because if x is negative 5, every place that I'm going to replace the x, I have to put the entire value of the x. And the entire value of the x includes the negative sign with a 5. So note that. Now, following that, we have a minus sign and a 2x. So I'm going to go ahead and write that. Minus sign and the x is negative 5. I'm using parentheses because I don't want to use those little dots because then it gets kind of lost in the mix. So this minus sign, remember back when we were talking about that coefficient of that second term just a little bit ago, which was negative 14x? Okay, well, I'm going to change this minus sign to plus negative because I want to remember that that's going to be a negative 2 times negative 5 here. Okay, I have to do the exponents first. So that's negative 5 squared. That negative 5 is in parentheses, so that's positive 25. Okay, so that's 75. And then I have a minus 2 times negative 5, which is like negative 2 times negative 5, so that's a plus 10 and a plus 1. So that should come out to be 75 plus 10, 85 plus 1 is 86. Okay, check my work on that and see how you did. So, order of operations. Sounds easy, but sometimes takes a little bit of concentration so that you keep the order correct.